My wife Jess has been focused on trying to make our loft a more usable space, and she wanted a place for Morgan's books as well as media players and DVDs. So I got to work. I started this as a birthday present, then fell way behind with work, so it ended up being about a month and a half late. Sorry, honey. I used cabinet construction, so I started by cutting a sheet of 3/4 inch oak plywood down into two sides, a bottom, a partition piece, and some stretchers. I used pocket hole joinery to start assembling the carcass, and I set the bottom piece in 3/4 of an inch so it would be flush with the top of an 1.5 inch bottom rail of the face frame. You'll see what I'm talking about later. I like to add these corner braces to make sure everything is square, but also to give me something to attach the top to. Once I had the initial frame together, I added the partition using plain old drywall screws since they would be hidden. Then I started on the top. For the top, face frames, and door, I used quartersawn white oak. Not only is it really stable, but you get a ton of medullary rays emanating from the grain. It just has a really distinct look. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the width I needed out of the stock I had in two pieces, so I added a third down the middle. I opted to not use anything other than glue to join the top because I had run out of number 20 biscuits and I was wagering that glue would be enough. I cleaned up the seams with a card scraper, then turned my attention to the face frame. Normally I like to use glue and biscuits to join face frames, but this one was 6 feet long and I don't have clamps that long, so I thought it would be easier to use pocket holes. Once the glue was dry, I did a test fit, and then to help keep the carcass square, I attached a 1/4 inch back panel. I recently picked up this Bostitch brad gun and I'm less than impressed. This is 3/4 inch white oak, and I've tried shooting in both orientations and it frequently blows out the sides and jams up pretty often. So I grabbed my trusty Hitachi finish nailer, which never lets me down. I'd cut some shelves out of that same piece of plywood and then cut some thin strips of oak out of regular flat sawn stuff I had on hand for edge banding. Since you're looking at the edge of the flat sawn stock, you're actually looking at the quartersawn face so it would match the rest of the cabinet. Does that make sense? Anyway, onto the feet. I took those blanks I glued up at the beginning of this video and cut them into rounds on the bandsaw, then I took them to the lathe. You normal viewers probably remember that I got a lathe. So much fun. I attached the feet to plywood mounting plates I made out of scrap, then screwed them onto the underside of the cabinet. Using a shelf pin jig, I drilled a bunch of holes to make the shelves adjustable. Now to make a door for the media side. I basically made a shaker door using 2-inch wide stiles and rails using glue and biscuits. Because the door is inset instead of overlay, squareness really counts both in your door and the frame. I wanted to set a piece of glass in the door, so I used a rabbiting bit in the router, then squared the corners of the rabbet with a chisel. I did it this way instead of building the glass into the door in case I ever needed to replace the glass. I flushed up the edge banding on the shelves, then sanded everything to 220. I used all the corners with some hand sanding, and with that, I was ready for finish. I used 3 coats of General Finishes satin armor seal sanding in between coats. I was also sure to apply a finish to the underside of the top to keep it more or less stable over the seasons. I ordered the piece of glass from a local glass shop and had it tempered since this was going in an area where my young daughter plays. I used silicone and glazing points to secure it. When it was time to hang the door, I used playing cards to shim around the door to make sure my reveal was the same all the way around the door. I added some H-style hinges because I think quartersawn oak is a really classic look, and I think those hinges really play to that. I drilled oblong holes through the carcass pieces to allow for seasonal movement in the top once it was attached, and then I took it all upstairs. Once I got it up there, I attached the top, then I realized I forgot to make a hole for all of the wires for the media components, so I made a little bit of a mess. After putting all the shelves in and taking a step back, I think it works really well in the space. Jess says she loves it. I'll take that. Happy birthday, Jess. you liked this video, consider subscribing. If you loved this video, consider sharing it with a friend. Thanks for watching.